All right, let's get started. Happy Friday, everyone. The Secretary General is arriving this evening in Addis Ababa. He will participate in the African Union Summit over the weekend, as we had mentioned earlier. We'll provide his remarks as we get them. The special meeting on Syria has continued at the UN headquarters in Vienna today. Staffan de Mistura, the special envoy for Syria, continues to meet separately with each delegation. As a reminder, the special meeting is a part of the UN-facilitated Geneva political process. The meeting is being held in Vienna this time for logistical reasons. Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs Miroslav Yencha visited Lebanon yesterday and today. He met with President Michel Aoun, Speaker Nabi Berri, Minister of the Interior Nouad Mashnouk, and Lebanese Armed Forces Commander General Joseph Aoun, among others. Mr. Yencha welcomed ongoing preparations for the parliamentary elections scheduled for the 6th of May. He stressed the importance of conducting credible and inclusive elections with stronger participation of women in the political decision-making process. He confirmed the continued commitment of the United Nations to support the work of Lebanese authorities in voter education, elections management, and women's empowerment. We have more details in a note to correspondence. Our colleagues from the UN Peacekeeping mission in Mali today strongly condemned the horrendous attack against a bus traveling from Burkina Faso that took place close to the town of Boni yesterday. The detonation of an explosive device left more than 20 people dead, including women and children. The UN mission also condemned recent attacks against the Malian defense and security forces. We joined the special representative of the Secretary General, Mohamed Saleh An-Nadif, in offering our condolences to the families of the victims and to the governments of Mali and Burkina Faso. Mr. An-Nadif also stressed the importance of bringing the perpetrators to justice. Our humanitarian colleagues launched yesterday Cameroon's 2018 Humanitarian Response Plan, which is seeking $304.5 million. Some 3.3 million people are in need of emergency assistance in the regions of Adamawa, East, North, and Far North, representing a 14% increase compared to last year. The humanitarian crisis in Cameroon is characterized by the impact of three crises: growing insecurity in the Lake Chad Basin region, the conflict in the Central African Republic, and a significant increase in food insecurity, malnutrition, and epidemics. IOM, the International Organization for Migration, and UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, are outraged and saddened at the drownings of at least 30 refugees and migrants off the coast of Aden, Yemen, earlier this week. Survivors of the incident have reported to UN and partner staff that an overcrowded boat, packed with at least 152 Somalis and Ethiopians, departed on the 23rd of January from the Al Buraika coast in Aden in a boat headed across the Gulf of Aden towards Djibouti. The vessel is believed to have been operated by unscrupulous smugglers who were attempting to take refugees and migrants to Djibouti while also trying to extort more money from these refugees and migrants. The boat capsized amid reports of gunfire being used against the passengers. Our colleagues in UNICEF warned today that a growing number of children in Venezuela are suffering from malnutrition because of the protracted economic crisis affecting the country. While precise figures are unavailable because of very limited official health or nutrition data, there are clear signs that the crisis is limiting children's access to quality health services, medicines, and food. UNICEF says that the government has implemented measures to mitigate the impact of the crisis on children's nutrition, but that more needs to be done to reverse the worrisome decline in children's nutritional well-being. It reiterates its readiness to strengthen support for government and civil society. I also want to flag that this week the governments of Brazil and Nigeria launched mass immunization campaigns to protect people against yellow fever. With support from the World Health Organization and partners, an estimated 23.8 million people in Brazil and 25 million people in Nigeria are expected to be vaccinated. The virus is endemic in tropical areas of Africa and Central and South America. Since the launch of the Yellow Fever Initiative in 2006, significant progress in combating the disease has been made, especially in West Africa, and more than 105 million people have been vaccinated in mass campaigns. More details on both campaigns are available on WHO's website. This Sunday will be World Leprosy Day, focusing this year on the target of 0 cases of leprosy-related disabilities in children. Early detection is key to achieving this target, alongside scaling up interventions to prevent leprosy transmission. Despite being eliminated globally as a public health problem in 2000, leprosy continues to mar the lives of individuals and affect families and communities. In 2015, leprosy had affected an additional 212,000 people globally, 60% of whom were in India. The other high-burden countries were Brazil and Indonesia. Among new cases, 8.9% were children and 6.7% presented with visible deformities. The World Health Organization stresses that though present numbers are a fraction of what had been reported a decade earlier, they are still unacceptable, as an effective treatment for leprosy, multi-drug therapy, has been available since the 1980s and could fully cure the disease. News just in, no fewer than 7 member states have paid their regular budget dues in full. We thank Denmark, the Dominican Republic, Finland, Georgia, Liechtenstein, Nepal, and Singapore. And the honor roll now stands at 23. Following my briefing, Brendan Verma will be here to brief you. And then immediately after, I will be joined by Jahatma Wickramanayake, the Secretary General's envoy on youth. She will brief you ahead of the ECOSOC Youth Forum, which will take place here at headquarters from the 30th to the 31st of January. Do we have any questions before we turn to Brendan? Yes, Carol.
Farhan, I'm wondering, based on whatever progress was achieved at the Vienna talks, whether the Secretary General thinks that Staffan de Mistura should go to Sochi?
Well, we are evaluating the situation as at the end of these talks. The talks are still going on in Vienna as we speak, so they're not quite done yet. Once they've happened, Mr. de Mistura will evaluate what the situation is and evaluate what and we can then evaluate from there what our presence in Sochi may or may not be. Yes.
Thank you, Farhan. About Iraq, well, finally some good news from Iraq. The Iraqi Prime Minister held the first meeting since the Kurdish referendum with the Kurdish Prime Minister. In the past week, they had 2 meetings. This is a major breakthrough. What's your comment? And what is the SG's position about this?
Well, as you know, we've always encouraged dialogue between Baghdad and Erbil, and the Secretary General's Special Envoy, Jan Kubish, has been reaching out to the authorities, respectively, in the government of Iraq and the Kurdistan regional government, trying to get them to work with each other. So we welcome any signs towards dialogue, and we'll continue to follow up and stay in touch with the respective governments.
And about Syria, any updates about the Afrin? Any recent updates other than the one we had yesterday?
Well, there's nothing more to say about our humanitarian concerns. As you know, we continue to be concerned about the humanitarian situation in Afrin, as we've been reporting throughout the week. Because of security considerations, some of our convoys have not been able to move, and that remains the case as of today. But we'll continue to try to reach out and help as much people as much as we can once the conditions allow. Yes.
Mr. de Mistura today is not happy for this, what's going on. Do you inform me what's going on over there, why he's not happy?
I wouldn't characterize his mood one way or the other. Going into the talks, he said that he would be cautiously optimistic about what could be achieved, and we'll have to see what his evaluation is once the proceedings today have concluded. But they're still going on as we speak. Yes, please.
Farhan, on Venezuela, in the early elections that have been called, some countries are saying they won't recognize the results of these presidential elections. What is the position of the Secretary General?
Well, yeah. We're aware of what the various parties, including the government and the opposition, have been saying about the early elections. Meanwhile, we continue to support the regional efforts, particularly those led by the Dominican Republic, and we hope that the government and the opposition will be able to reach a much-needed agreement. As you know, the Secretary General has repeatedly expressed concern with unilateral measures that may distance Venezuela from a path conducive to agreed political solutions to its challenges. And we do believe that there's still avenues for the government and the opposition to reach compromise on critical issues.
Follow up, when you talk about unilateral actions, you consider this early elections one of those?
I think I've said what I can say. Yes.
Sure. I wanted to know, there's some reports of an attack on a UN compound in Mogadishu and the death of I guess, international staff member from Uganda. Are you aware of that? Can you confirm it?
No, we don't have confirmation. We'll try to see whether there's anything to those reports.
And I also wanted to ask you about mediator Obasanjo's trip to Kenya. There's now reports in the press there, basically with both the government or the Jubilee Party and Nassau denying that they had any meeting with him. So I wanted to know, did he go, and who did he meet with? And also, is there any comment on the Nassau Coalition announcing what they call the authentic results of the August election, saying that Raila Odinga won?
Well, regarding that, it was in the context of the decisions by the National Super Alliance that the Secretary General asked former President Obasanjo to visit Kenya. It's important that Kenyans continue to uphold the 2010 Constitution and that the opposition carry their political activities within the confines of the law. We would like to stress the importance for Kenyans to work together to strengthen governance, advance inclusive development, and uphold human rights and the rule of law.
But did he meet with any representative of the Nassau Coalition while he was there?
I believe he reached out with a range of interlocutors as part of his work, and he'll continue to keep with his various contacts. Yes.
Thank you, Farhan. Congo's President Joseph Kabila had a rare press conference today, and in that press conference he criticized the UN's response to the UN peacekeeping mission's response to attacks both in the Kasais and in eastern Congo, including the attack that killed the 15 Tanzanian peacekeepers. He said, and I quote, "Despite our many calls to the UN mission against these terrorists, there was late reaction." I wondered if the UN has a response.
Yes. The United Nations itself reviews the work of its peacekeepers whenever we think that there have been any problems, including problems in our response. And as you're aware, we have been looking in to the various situations, and there are two different inquiries that we have that are finalizing their work concerning the actions of UN peacekeepers in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Once those inquiries are completed, we'll try to share with you details. But we ourselves are working to improve our performance, where we, as in other countries, are always in dialogue with our host countries when we have our peacekeeping missions, and we try to do the best we can to improve the performance of our peacekeepers. And like I said, beyond that, we'll keep you posted as we get further information about the inquiries. Yes.
Thank you, Farhan. Two questions about Iraq. Next month there will be an international reconstruction conference in Kuwait. Who will represent the United Nations? And the second question is, Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs had a visit to Iraq, 3 days. He went to Baghdad, Mosul, but didn't go to Erbil. Why is that? As you know, Kurdistan region is having an estimated 2 million IDPs. Why he didn't go to Erbil?
Well, you'll have seen we put out two different press releases about Mr. Yencha's trip to Iraq, and so he had a number of initiatives that he was trying to achieve there. As you know, other officials, including Mr. Kubish, have frequently visited the Kurdistan region. Our humanitarian coordinator, Liz Grande, has been at work there very considerably.
But why he didn't go there?
But regarding Mr. Yencha's visit, he had a number of things he was trying to achieve, and we informed you of his various stops and meetings. It was a full schedule, and now, as I just mentioned, he's continued onwards to Lebanon.
And about Kuwait, who's going to represent
the UN will be represented at a very high level, and we'll try to provide further details closer to the event. Yes.
Getting back to peacekeeping, Farhan, I was just getting back to this special investigation on CAR. The note that was put out said that a number of gaps were identified in terms of the TCCs and in terms of training and their understanding of protection of civilians. Could we have more detail about what exactly those gaps were?
Well, we'll certainly try to provide more details as we can get them. Basically, basically, the investigation has made several recommendations for corrective measures to be taken by troop contributing countries and police contributing countries. And peacekeeping is engaging with the troop contributing countries and police contributing countries constructively to ensure that these measures are implemented. If they're not in accordance with its practice on performance, peacekeeping will decide at the appropriate time on any further action to be taken. Yes, Frank.
Farhan, a question about, we were talking with the Russian ambassador a few days ago, and he was supposedly tabling a resolution on Syria, and during the conversation he said he was looking to the Secretary General to help them with terms of reference with their new draft resolution. Has the Secretary General been in touch with the Russian delegation? Has he even looked at their new draft proposal on Syria? Are they considering it at all?
Well, I don't really have any comment on draft proposals as they work their way among the member states. As you know, all of these draft proposals are to be considered by the members of the Security Council, so we'll refrain from comment while they discuss them.
But he specifically mentioned the Secretary General. He was seeking
yeah.
terms. So
Yeah.
has there been any communication between
Yes.
that delegation and the SG's office?
The Secretary General communicates with all of the various member states, but beyond that, we wouldn't share any specific comments, like I said, while these proposals work its way through the member states. Yes.
Sure. Just first, something on the DRC. There's a meeting today, maybe still going on in Conference Room 7, that's called an open briefing of this. But when I went to try to attend it, I was not in. I did call Malu, and somehow it's still not in. So I'm wondering, what is it? It doesn't say closed. It says open. How does it work?
It is, in fact, closed. I checked, and the chair of the committee decided to close the meeting. And so in accordance with that, the meeting is closed.
Okay, after the journal was published.
Yes, presumably since then.
Do you know why?
But that you would have to ask the chair of the committee.
And I wanted to ask you about an event that took place in the delegates' entrance last night, sponsored by the Serbian mission. It was about a concentration camp, and it's reported that Croatia wrote directly to Antonio Guterres to try to get it canceled, given the presentation. And I wanted to know, what can you say about that? I guess there seems to be a lot of controversy about it, and I did note some staff of the Holocaust unit of DPI present. What was the relationship between the UN and the event, and do you have any comment on the event?
I don't have any comment on the event. As you know, different member states can use the building to hold different events, and that is their right.
But maybe it's related, because I guess I want to understand this. There's a separate story about an Israeli singer, Benayoun, who had sought to come. There was a lot of controversy. Somebody wrote to Antonio Guterres to say don't have him. Alison Smale wrote back and said he's not invited. Turns out he is coming, but the event that he'll be at, which is sponsored by the Israeli mission, is not on the UN's schedule of Holocaust events, it says. So what's the I guess what I'm meaning is, even if these events have nothing to do with the UN, including the ones that have been held elsewhere in the GA lobby, who decides which events get listed on the list of UN Holocaust Week events and which are not? Is that a political decision? Who decides that?
The United Nations itself, and including its Department of Public Information, has a program of Holocaust events, and those are listed as such. Of course, member states are free to organize their own events, but many of them will not be on the UN program.
But so
those are events organized by member states.
DPI reviews the events in advance and says this one will be listed on our program and this one won't.
DPI has an office that deals with the remembrance of the Holocaust, and they deal specifically with that.
So they decided that the Serbian one was too controversial, or how did it work?
No, the Serbian one is organized by member state. Meetings organized by member states are separate. There are meetings that are part of the Holocaust commemoration that's organized by DPI, and then there are other ones that are organized by member states.
But there's a sign down in the GA that lists the week's events, and some of them are sponsored by missions. Do you see what I mean? It's not like they're UN events and then mission events.
Those would have been agreed to beforehand. All right, Brenton, come on. Oh, one more, and then he's raring to go. Yeah.
Thanks, Farhan. I just had a quick question in terms of an update regarding the Ukraine. I was just wondering if there's been any new information, and also about the status of UN involvement there.
No, I mean, we continue to be involved, and we continue to support the efforts of the Minsk group, but there's no particular new initiatives to talk about at this stage. Come on up, Brenton.
I had a quick housekeeping question.
We can't keep them waiting forever. All right, what is it?
Now, this is a question I asked of Stefan, and it had to do with the webcast service here and the problem with the sketchy webcast service sometimes because they put the Secretary General up. You don't see his face, you hear his audio, and we've not gotten answers on this kind of thing?
I followed up on your question with the Department for
and it's
Public
not the
Information.
webcast, they're claiming it's the IT guys?
And there was they are saying that it's a problem that had to do with the Internet access at that particular time. So it's something that they're taking up with the Internet service provider.
Okay.
All right, come on up.